Yes, of course the bar is out of Mellow Yellow again, and of course the next shipment isn't for another week. You'd think they'd stock up more knowing that I'm a regular.
You know, maybe if you wouldn't order 50 mugs every time you came in.
I like my Mellow Yellow like you like your NASCAR. Do not criticize Coke's Mountain Dew.
It's just an observation, Trigger. Jeez, you're acting like I just lambasted your favorite MLP episode.
That reminds me, I have a favor I need to ask you.
No, I'm not gonna get you a Starlight plushie from BronyCon.
What? No! Though that would be nice. I need to borrow your car. I'm doing a top 10 overhated episodes list, and I need an escape vehicle for the inevitable lynch mob.
Don't you have a police cruiser you can use? You can even get traffic out of your way.
Well, normally I'd have an entire squad of police cruisers to choose from, but Onyx's robot army trashed them all when he assaulted my station.
Where was I when Onyx... never mind. But your list does sound dangerous. I'd be willing to loan you my best race car, but on one condition.
Let me guess.
I get to drive.
You really want a horde of angry fans chasing after you?
It's about time I do something a little different with my channel. Besides, as an officer, you should know to never go into a dangerous situation without backup.
Fine. I guess that makes you my deputy for the duration of the video. Be ready to drive as soon as the mob starts forming.
Well, all you gotta do is tell me to start up the car and we're gone. Trust me, I've got almost 20 years experience playing NASCAR games. We'll be fine.
Alright then. Deputy, screen wipe! Let's get this party started. Figuring out an order for a list like this is tricky.
Especially when a few episodes on the list, Trigger and I don't necessarily agree with their quality, we just agree that they're overhated.
The problem is figuring out whether to rank them in order of which ones deserve their hate the least, which episodes are best, or some combination of the two.
Even now, we're still confused with what we picked, so it's a guessing game, folks. Have fun with that.
While how much we enjoy these episodes will be playing a big factor, they won't necessarily be the deciding one. So really, calling this list Top 10 Overhated Episodes is a bit misleading. Maybe calling it something like Top 10 Bad Episodes that are secretly good would be more accurate.
Because you can still enjoy an episode that has a few flaws. Like, I enjoy the fun and darkness of Health of Information, but I still acknowledge the contrivance of the method to get the Flash Bees honey not being written down.
Okay, at this point we're just waffling. Let's just go. Deputy, number transition!
Use your aggressive feelings, boy. Let the hate flow through you.
So, to start off our list, we're diving back all the way to early Season 2 with an episode that was quite controversial in the fandom when it debuted, The Mysterious Mare Duel.
Speaking as someone who wasn't part of the fandom during Season 2, I thought the episode was pretty good the first time I saw it, and I still hold that opinion to this day. It wasn't until much later that I discovered that it was one of the more divisive episodes. And I can kind of see where people are coming from, but I think they're overreacting.
Coming from someone who also was not in the fandom during Season 2, I don't necessarily hate this episode, but I'm not a fan of it either. In fact, if you base it off my own rating system, it'd get a yellow flag. Though I honestly do see why some people like it, but parts of this episode just don't sit well with me.
Okay, I'll bite. What would those parts be?
Mainly just how the main five went about trying to teach Dash a lesson on what it means to be a hero. Now, don't get me wrong, I 100% agree that Dash was in desperate need of being shown that her arrogance was reaching levels that Tony Stark would find annoying, but that scene in Sugar Cube Corner where it's clear Rainbow is already pretty upset, yet her friends pour salt and lemon juice in her wounds, I believe is going just a little bit too far. Not too much, but just a little bit.
I respectfully disagree. For one thing, Rainbow doesn't look depressed, she looks angry, and it's clear that what's bothering her is that she was upstaged by another hero. What the main five are doing here is that they're showing Rainbow how a true hero would behave, simply saving people and leaving, rather than soaking up the praise. And I don't agree with fans who say that the main six's behavior here is hypocritical, seeing as Mare Duel isn't a public identity. None of them are basking in the praise of the townsfolk after performing their heroic acts. It's the difference between Bruce Wayne saying Batman saved the day, and Tony Stark saying Iron Man saved the day.
And to that, I do agree, especially since Rainbow was willing to let a baby stay in danger just to showboat more. But I think it could have been done in a different way. I like the idea of them showing up to save a few ponies and then leaving once the job is done. It's a good method to show Rainbow what she should be doing, but I think there's more. Since Twilight was extremely advanced in magic, I think they should have utilized the opportunity of having different friends play Mare Duel and had Twilight perform a voice changing spell so that Mare Duel could actually interact with ponies just to make sure they're alright. And I know superheroes don't stop and speak to every citizen they save, but on the chance that they have to reply to someone, it's good for them to communicate and build trust with the citizens. This way, instead of disappearing and reappearing as fast as they can, they're actually showing her what a hero does, being there for the citizens or population both physically and emotionally, instead of just appearing and disappearing in the blink of an eye.
Well, it's not like Mare-Duell doesn't stay long enough to see that everyone's okay. And I think saying that they were trying to one-up Rainbow is a tad unfair, as that implies that they were trying to hurt her, which is simply not the case. All they were trying to do was rein her ego in. I'm with you on the voice changing spell though. I think the episode would have been more well received if it did a better job of showing how other methods wouldn't have worked. But I don't think the main six did anything here that was morally questionable.
Well, again, that is just a minor gripe for me. I mean, while Mare-Duell showing up and leaving quickly I believe could have been retooled a bit, I admit it does a good job of showing Rainbow that there's more to being a hero than just the glory. Mare-Duell does her job of saving citizens and does it well without the showboating. Other than that, I think the episode is rather good. I've heard people say that the main five were outright bullying Rainbow, which is not true at all. Granted, the Sugar Cube corner scene still doesn't sit too well with me, but Rainbow did need a good smack upside the head to get her head out of the clouds.
Oh, and speaking of characters being mean to Rainbow...
You don't mean...
Use your aggressive feelings, boy. Let the hate flow through you.
If you thought the mysterious Mare-Duell was an interesting start, you know it's going to be a fun list when Newbie Dash is the next entry.
Oh boy.
Oh boy is right. Talking about this episode has always been tricky because a lot of people associate the Wonderbolt's treatment of Rainbow Dash with their childhood bullying, so defending this episode runs the risk of dismissing what they went through in their school years.
And trust me, that's not what our goal is for this episode at all.
Absolutely not. And while it's great that an episode can properly represent an important aspect of society, that of course being the military, I think it's important that an episode stand on its own merits without needing comparisons to the military for it to work.
That's definitely a fair assessment, and I think that's one of the reasons why there was some negativity sprouting up when Newbie Dash aired. However, while the vast majority of us have suffered bullying growing up, that doesn't really affect the episode for me at all.
I can't really say I've been bullied much in my childhood, but I've had plenty of mean things said to me, and I've had plenty of playful ribbing thrown in my direction. I know where playful ribbing differs from actual bullying, and I think Newbie Dash understands the difference too. Watch this episode and Sonic Rainboom again and pretend that the Wonderbolts and the bullies are saying Dash rather than Crash. I guarantee you'll spot the connotational difference between the two uses of the nickname.
And even though I've defended the majority of the Wonderbolts from criticism in this episode, Misty Fly can go and get smacked with a giant fly swatter for sticking back and rubbing Crash on Rainbow's face. That's not playful ribbing, that's just being a dick.
Ooh, maybe I'll tell Ash that she's been bothering Starlight. Seriously, that guy will hunt down anyone as long as you tell him they hate Starlight. F***ing idiot.
To be fair though, while I will praise the hell out of the first act for setting up the story because it was so good, I really cannot stand the second act of Newbie Dash. I know, people are getting sick of hearing the word cringy, but that is seriously what I feel every time Rainbow tried to mimic her friends. I get that the writers were trying to be funny with her, but it just comes across as desperate. Hell, when Rainbow mimicked Twilight in The Lost Treasure of Griffinstone, I laughed my ass off because it was done in a mocking way. Here, Rainbow's just being too serious when she tries to act like her friends.
Can't argue with that. The joke quickly overstays its welcome and it comes across as pointless filler. I think the episode would have been significantly improved if they cut her imitations down to just 2 or 3 members of the main 6, and spent the excess time working on the Wonderbolts treating her like she's one of them. We did get some of that, but it would have only helped the episode if we'd gotten more of it.
Plus, with Rainbow's embarrassment over the nickname, we could have gotten her to show a little more animosity towards one of the Wonderbolts and have them retort that it's just a nickname. This way, Rainbow being upset can be completely understood, but it would give the audience a hint that the Wonderbolts aren't targeting Rainbow for anything. Hell, make Misty Fly do that and cut out the scene where it does give the impression she's targeting Rainbow.
Well, the problem with that approach is that if they spent too much time spelling it out, it would have made Rainbow look even dumber. I think a better approach would be more time spent with the Wonderbolts referring to one another by their nicknames without the context behind them. Again, we got a little of that when Spitfire addressed Soren as Clipper, but not enough to clue the audience in on what was going on. It was too much of a blink and you'll miss it moment.
Okay, fair point, Trigger. Even in the movie Top Gun, the only times the pilots were referred to by name was when they were being addressed by a senior officer, like when Maverick and Goose were being reprimanded for making a flyby on the Top Gun tower after being told the pattern was full. So I agree that we should have gotten time with Rainbow overhearing the Wonderbolts addressing each other by nickname.
There's an argument to be made that the episode's message could be misinterpreted by kids to just accept a bully's poor treatment of them. Though, I don't really see that as an issue considering the episode ends with the Wonderbolts spelling it out to Rainbow that the nicknames were not meant to be hurtful. That's in stark contrast to a bully who will only ever use a nickname with negative connotations.
Well, I can sort of see that, but I mean they couldn't have made the Wonderbolts more straightforward than they did at the end of the episode. Even going so far as to revealing their own nicknames for doing stupid stuff or making errors like Rainbow is more than enough proof that it's just something fun between the Flyers that they get to share. And they each have fun stories behind their nicknames.
I will say this though, I will never forgive this episode for the massive continuity error that it makes.
And what might that be?
You're leaving already? But we barely started your congratulation party. I haven't even thought about your going away party yet.
Come on, episode. You expect me to believe that Pinkie Pie, the pony who's so meticulous that she plans her parties decades in advance, would forget to plan a party for one of her friends?
That honestly sounds more like a minor nitpick than a continuity.
It's a massive continuity error!
Use your aggressive feelings, boy. Let the hate flow through you.
Alright, number 8 brings us a Starlight episode to the list.
I just hope Ash doesn't crash the party.
So, All Bottled Up is special in the sense that it was the first time in the history of the show that the first 2 episodes of a season were not a connected story, which left it in a curious spot since it still aired the same day as Celestial Advice.
All Bottled Up is what I like to call a fruit salad episode. It has a lot of juicy bits that are just so good, but it has a few elements that just don't mesh well.
No, wait, let me guess.
You hate how the episode cuts back to the main 6, don't you, Trigger?
What was the point? Why do we keep coming back to the main 6 for no reason? How does it advance the story? It's all just so pointless! Ah!
Well, from what Freedom Flash and I thought when we collabed on both episodes is it was supposed to be a joke to show that 3 times as many ponies were working smooth as butter while a significantly less amount were going nowhere fast. The main 6 had it while Starlight was too afraid of hurting Trixie's feelings by admitting she's being a pain. Though, with how Trixie was acting so uncaring to her supposed best friend, I would have kicked her feelings right out the door.
Okay, that does make a certain amount of sense, but the problem is that it's completely disconnected from the rest of the story. Episodes like Castle Sweet Castle and Forever Philly are much better examples of an A-plot, B-plot story structure because the B-plot has an effect on the overall story, however subtle. Oh, and the song sucks too.
I won't argue with that. As for the song, I thought it was okay, but it won't get any praises from me. However, I thought it was pretty clever to have Starlight literally bottling up her anger instead of it remaining a metaphor, and I liked how every time she did it, she was shown to also be physically drained of energy as well as emotionally with her tired voice. The animation did a damn fine job of illustrating what it feels like to keep your anger in check for too long.
Wow, way to hog all the good stuff in this episode, Lefty. Anybody who knows me knows that I love everything to do with psychology, and this episode's metaphor for bottling up emotion is brilliant. The level of stress that comes with bottled up emotions is on perfect display here. A part of me would have preferred that the bottle literally explode when it was smashed, but I think it makes much more sense that Starlight let it all out in the end instead of making Ponyville the new Fallout location.
Not to mention, the jokes in the episode were pretty funny, like when Starlight agreed to show Trixie more magic lessons after the main 6 left, Spike immediately ditched the throne room and went to the kitchen, plus Bulk Biceps screaming, "My nut card!" and explaining that he wears many hats was funny too. And again, back to Spike, he was fantastic and all bottled up thanks to him being there for Starlight when she needed advice. Seriously, their little friendship that sprouted from the crystalling has been a great addition to Starlight's arc.
One other thing that bothered me about this episode was Trixie's portrayal. The writers seemed determined to make her the most despicable person in the episode. I won't say that she's out of character, as being a bit selfish has always been part of her character, but it seems like they forgot that these two are supposed to be best friends. This moment right here when Trixie tells Starlight,
You never get mad at me.
I wanted to punch my monitor, I was so irritated.
Hey, just like I hinted at earlier. But yeah, while I adore Trixie and Starlight's friendship, that's just a little too far to the point that Trixie could have used a good smack upside the head for that line.
And now you see why I call it a fruit salad episode. It has some of the smartest metaphors and morals in it, and the writing is really good for about half the running time. Everything else is either pointless filler or irritating characterization.
Don't worry about that, Trigger. I have something to remedy that for you. The next episode on the list is a fun one.
Use your aggressive feelings, boy. Let the hate flow through you.
Of all the episodes on this list, every little thing she does is probably the one that I have the hardest time defending, because none of the criticisms leveled against it are technically wrong. Starlight's moral compass in this episode is more whacked than Discord's version of Equestria, which is actually kind of why I like it so much.
Forget controlling ponies with powerful speeches. This time, Starlight straight up uses a mind control spell to try and skirt her lessons with the main five. But the kicker is the episode runs with it so well that it turns out to be pure fun.
Well, the issue that most people have is that fun is coming to us courtesy of Starlight enslaving the main six, and her being unaware that that's not okay.
Okay, that I completely understand, but remember that she was afraid of messing everything up and that Twilight's friends may not want to actually be friends with her. And Starlight was happy when Twilight was praising her for her magical abilities at the beginning. Combine that feeling of making someone close to you proud and then outright fear, and you've got someone acting on the desperate side.
True, but that doesn't excuse the fact that what Starlight did was wrong, and no other main character would have ever thought to try it. But the reason I think it works is because it ties into Starlight's background. Starlight spent God knows how long in a secluded part of Equestria in a society with completely different moral values. With nobody to teach her right from wrong, and nobody to challenge her rule, she never learned what behavior was inappropriate.
So to her, as long as the job got done, she didn't care how it got done, right?
Precisely! It makes perfect sense that she would have to learn empathy given her history. We see her starting to learn it here, continue to learn it in Mirror Magic and A Royal Problem, and definitively learn it by the Season 7 finale.
And I can sort of see that cropping up first in the Season 5 finale, where the only thought in her mind was making Twilight suffer, and she didn't even think of the consequences to Equestria if she succeeded. So this is something that she's needed to work on for some time now.
And while I feel kind of bad for saying it, I'm actually glad that she didn't truly learn this until later. This episode is the closest thing you can get to a Discord episode without Discord making an appearance, and it is glorious!
First off, the monotone voices, especially from Pinky and Rarity, were killer every time they spoke. Rarity showing Starlight her dress and saying it with that robot-like voice is one of my favorite character quotes from this episode.
I think Fluttershy wins the award for creepiest mind-controlled pony. I'm not exactly scared of bugs, but that swarm of insects all over her was just creepy.
But let's not forget Pinky building that mountain of cake ingredients and cooking utensils faster than the Millennium Falcon when Starlight was reading off the cookbook. I can see her doing that anyway without mind control, but the fact that she has that creepy smile on her face as she does it is hilarious. And Starlight's surprise is a good reaction. And we can't forget Applejack spouting out movie references when looking through her photo album. Reference humor can be fickle, but they did it in a rather clever way. It starts out with her explaining a photo of Big Mac hiding from a monster under mud, which is an obvious reference to Predator. They then boil them down gradually until she's just spouting movie lines in the background while Starlight's plan goes to crap. I just love how dramatic Ashley Ball delivers the Braveheart quote.
I think it's safe to say that the main six's reaction to the spell being broken is the closest thing we'll get to seeing a hangover in this show. My personal favorite was Applejack, proclaiming that she felt as though she went through the Super Speedy Cider Squeezy 6000. It's a funny line with perfect delivery, and it's a nice nod to continuity.
While I am an AJ fan and I agree with all of your points, I have to give the win to Rarity. She goes all out with the hangover joke. She's wearing sunglasses to block the sun from her eyes, a sun hat for extra precaution, and her whispering is dead on. I love how she begs everyone to whisper for the next few days, but also she has to ask Fluttershy, the quietest pony of the group and who is sitting at a completely different table and whispering as usual, to lower her voice. I had to pause the episode at this point when I first saw it because I was laughing so hard.
I especially love the episode's moral about learning to understand why people are having you do certain things. I work on quite a few projects with my dad occasionally, and I don't always understand why he wants me to do certain things. But one thing I learned very quickly is that he never asks me to do anything without a reason. It reminds me a lot of the methods used to train the main lead in the Karate Kid movies.
Then you add in that sweet moment of Spike trying to cheer Starlight up and give her encouragement like in the Crystalline. God, I love their friendship so much.
Use your aggressive feelings, boy. Let the hate flow through you.
Trigger, I just found out, we gotta go back.
Back where?
Back to season 2.
But we were just there with the mysterious mirror duel. Did we miss something?
No, that episode is still okay. I'm talking about a Crusader episode. Ponyville Confidential? You know, the one where people got upset because a few of the main 6 and the town's ponies were hypocritical when it came to gossip.
Oh, you mean Best Crusaders episode.
Debatable, certainly debatable, but yes. While I can certainly see that being an aggravating part of the episode, I disagree with that criticism. I think the episode perfectly captures how flawed we are when it comes to gossip. How it's always a little fun learning some juicy tidbits about friends or some people we may know, but all of a sudden the world comes to a crashing halt if we're the ones in the gossip spotlight.
The commentary in this episode is not subtle, and I love it for that. This episode is brutally honest with showing our hypocrisy in loving gossip when it's about others, but hating it when it's about us. In fact, this episode is actually a lot kinder to us than we give it credit for. It never goes into how even after it happens to us, we still engage in idle gossip.
Very true. Plus, the episode also does a good job in showing that how having to know more is something we go through. Sure, the Crusaders tried to go off onto real stories after the school paper became popular, but once the gossip bug bit Ponyville, that's all the populace cared about. And unfortunately, that's something that happens to all of us all too easily.
The primary complaint leveled at this episode is that the town's treatment of the CMC was uncalled for given that they were little kids and that they didn't really know any better. Which I find thoroughly confusing. If you found out that someone was completely fabricating stories about you, how charitable would you be around them? Why would you want to spend 1 nanosecond in their presence? Even ignoring the questionable logic of trusting a known liar, they had more than enough maturity to own up to their rumor mongering, and there's a scene that shows that they were fully aware of what they were doing. So saying that they didn't know any better simply doesn't stand up under scrutiny.
Not to mention, Diamond Tiara was outright blackmailing them, and like I previously stated, the Crusaders wanted to do more serious stories like the one with Spike. So again, citing that they didn't know better just boggles my mind because they were ready to drop the more harmless gossip stories in favor of more thought-provoking ones, foreshadowing their maturity.
Actually, their maturity in fully accepting responsibility is another reason why this is my favorite CMC episode. I can't think of any other episode where they showed this level of maturity. Hell, most adults in real life wouldn't show this level of maturity.
Besides, Rainbow dousing the trio with rainwater was the worst thing they got when the town was angry at them, so how is the town really treating them that badly? I'll admit, hearing Big Mac actually say something beyond "yup" was both interesting and kind of terrifying with how angry he sounded, but losing your temper at a fake story is a normal reaction. So again, I think people are simply over-exaggerating with how the town's ponies treated the CMC.
I suppose Shirley's negligence of the school paper is a minor plot hole. Seriously, she didn't step in sooner? But that's all it really is, a minor plot hole. The rest of the episode is so good, it doesn't really make any difference.
And I agree. I mean, at least she did step in once the Crusaders put their letter into the paper to expose themselves as Gabby Gums to apologize for hurting everyone's feelings, so there's that. And seeing Diamond Tiara, a spoiled rich brat, being forced down to a manual labor job where she's covered in ink is a pretty satisfying end to the episode, even as some people think that that wasn't enough of a punishment.